Hi, this is Luana Parker, and I'm the host and producer of the BHE show. And we are back this week to share a couple more stories about Black people who have made their mark in history. And last week, I had intended to share about my grandfather, but I didn't put the clock on, so I couldn't tell how long I had been on, and I'm allotted 30 minutes. So I left my grandfather out because I went a little long on Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves, I still think of him as a very fascinating man. He did some amazing work in law enforcement for the time period that he lived in. So I just wanted to make sure I did him right and not cut off anything that was said or known about him. So I make no apologies for that. This week, however, I will try to include some about my grandfather. This is the last day for Black History. Well, traditionally, February has been the month for Black History. I am aware that it goes on in March, but I'm kind of one of those traditional people. I like traditions. Traditions are fun. So, anyway, our show today, we will talk about Madam C.J. Walker, and we will also talk about a young man named Octavius V. Catto. You probably haven't heard of him. I certainly hadn't before I ran across his name and decided to find out what I could about him. And as I did last week, I will read this to you because I don't want to leave anything out. So I'm going to read what research was found and reported on these two individuals. And I hope that you enjoy learning about people in the past, what they did, because you know what? If it wasn't for those people and the things that they did, we wouldn't have it so well off today. We stand on their backs for all that they accomplished in a time that it was extremely difficult for them. And yet they didn't let that hold them back. So, what excuse do we have when we say, I don't have enough resources, I can't do it, nobody cares about what I want to do? I have a friend who sent me something, and I'm going to play it for you. Yes, stop it. Because you do have everything you need to do whatever it is you want, and you are an amazing individual. There is absolutely no one else like you. So let's get started with Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker was born in 1867 and she died in 1919. She was lauded as the first Black woman millionaire in America for her successful line of hair care products. Born Sarah Breedlove, she was widowed by age 20 and took work as a laundress. After seeking treatment for hair loss, she developed the Walker system and sold her homemade products directly to Black women. A talent for self promotion helped build a booming enterprise, and she spent lavishly on luxurious homes. Walker also founded the Scholarship for Women at the Tuskegee Institute and donated large sums to the NAACP, the Black YMCA, and dozens of other charities. Now, see, I learned something. I didn't know there was a Black YMCA. That's good to know. Born Sarah Breedlove, the daughter of Louisiana sharecroppers, Walker was orphaned at 6, married at 14, and widowed at 20, with a 2-year-old daughter to care for. She resettled in St. Louis and went to work as a laundress. Her early years reflected patterns all too common for Black women of her generation. In 1905, Walker, who had been losing her hair, sought, sought a treatment for the condition. The method of beauty culture she developed revolutionized Black hair care. Please forgive my cat, or I should say my grandson cat. For some reason, he's walking around screaming his head off because I think he wants to go outside. You think he learned his lesson from the last time he went outside when he got hurt. So let's get back to the story because this is fascinating to learn that this woman, in the time period that she lived, was a millionaires, and she was a woman, and a Black woman at that, because of a beauty product that she created herself for Black hair. The combination of scalp preparation, application of lotions, and use of iron combs became known as the Walker system. She distinguished her products from the hair straighteners advocated by white cosmetic firms, arguing that her treatment was geared to the special health needs of Blacks. She sold her homemade products directly to Black women using a personal approach that won her customers and eventually a fleet of loyal saleswomen. Walker trained her beauty culturists after establishing her business headquarters in Denver with a branch in Pittsburgh managed by her daughter, Alelia. Her second husband, Charles J. Walker, a journalist, helped promote his wife's her flourishing enterprise. Her lectures and demonstrations won thousands of customers, and in 1910, she moved her headquarters to Indianapolis. Her business employed over 3,000 workers, mainly door to door saleswomen. Her product line of nearly 20 hair and skin items was widely advertised in the Black press. Walker, whose talent for self promotion made her one of the best known Black Americans during the first quarter of the century, and was lauded as the first Black woman millionaire in America. Her largesse was legendary, and she spent extravagant sums on her Manhattan townhouse. When her daughter inherited the mansion in the 1920s, it became a salon for members of the Harlem Renaissance. Walker also owned a luxury country home, Villa Loire. Oh, tongue twister there. Lauroro in Irvington on Hudson, designed by Black architect Vintner Tandy. Walker was as generous as she was successful, establishing a network of clubs for her employees and offering bonuses and prizes to those who contributed to their communities through charitable works. She promoted female talent. The charter of her company provided that only a woman could serve as president. She was a she was a standard bearer for Black self-help funding scholarships for women at Tuskegee Institute and donating large sums to the NAACP, the Black YMCA, and dozens of Black charities. Wow, she was a woman of her time. Madam Walker's plans for her headquarters, the Walker Building, were carried out after her premature death at 51. The structure, completed in 1927, today is part of a historic renovation district in downtown Indianapolis. The Reader's Companion to American History, Eric Faulkner and John A. Guaranty, editors. This was published by them through Houghton Milton Harcourt Publishing Company, and all rights are preserved. I am sharing this with you because I think Black history is important. We need to know about the people who suffered the heartaches and headaches of being Black and yet did not let it stop them from doing the things that they believed in. So thank you, Madam C.J. Walker, for showing us the way and being the standard bearer for all Black women today. The next story is about Octavius v. Catto. Octavius was a prominent civil rights activist and educator in Philadelphia who tragically lost his life on Election Day in 1871 while exercising his right to vote. Cato, like many blacks at the time, was a supporter of the Republican Party and met the violent opposition of Irish immigrants who supported the Democrat Party. Cato was born February 22nd, 1839, to a free mother and a former slave father in Charleston, South Carolina. His father became a well-known Presbyterian minister, moving his family north to give them greater opportunity. Cato was educated at the Institute for Colored Youth, which is now known as Cheney University. After studying in Washington, D.C., Cato returned home and taught at ICY. During a Confederate Army invasion in 1863, Cato organized and helped train volunteer troops to head off many forces. During this period, Cato founded the Banneker Literary Institute and the Pennsylvania Equal Rights League. He also worked alongside activists such as Frederick Douglass and others, and was a supporter of getting a 1867 state law passed that ended the racial segregation of public transportation. On October 10th, 1871, Cato was teaching in the city as widespread skirmishes were occurring between white Irish immigrants and blacks. During the Reconstruction era, many blacks supported the Republican agenda and enjoyed perceived perks because of their loyalty to the party. Pennsylvania ratified the 15th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that year. Irish immigrants felt slighted in some fashion and threw their partisan support behind the Democrats' agenda by enacting a terror campaign against Black residents. It was rumored that Cato knew of the risks he faced by going to the polls and was thus armed, yet Irishman Frank Kelly still took it upon himself to gun down the teacher and activist in cold blood. Kelly escaped but was found 6 years later in Chicago. He faced trial, and despite the white and black eyewitnesses pegging him as Cato's killer, an all white jury acquitted him of the crime. Cato was a beloved figure, and his funeral was attended by thousands. In 1906, the Never Married Cato had Philadelphia's OV Lounge named after him. In 2007, the Octavius Cato Memorial Fund erected a headstone at his gravesite in Collinsville, Pennsylvania. Now, I don't know who wrote the article. I didn't see anyone to give credit to, but it is an article about a man I had never heard of before, and yet he made some wonderful, he gave some wonderful things to this country and to us in particular as a Black race. Now, the thing of it is that I've often wondered, and I don't know when that happened, but at one time we did support the Republican Party. And I often argue with people that the reason we switched to the Democrat Party was because Kennedy was a Democrat, and Kennedy was well loved by everyone. And so the end result was that we decided that we would throw our support behind the Democrat Party. Now, I don't mean that I'm not talking politics because I don't get into that, only with a select group of people. Because I am one of a kind and I don't always agree with what anybody says, regardless of the party. And no, I am not an independent. Um, but we did switch parties. I don't know if it was for the better or not. That's for you to decide. But those are my two stories of two Black individuals who made such a difference in history for all of us. Now, I want to share a little about my grandfather, who also made history for his family anyway. Oh my gosh, I love that man, and I wish I could have known him longer and much better. He died when I was about 8. I remember right. I have to think about the year. I think I was 8, maybe 9, but I think 8. He was a man who started out with nothing, and people, or his own family, I should say, uh, laughed at him and made fun of him because he was born on the wrong side of the blanket, as they used to say, meaning he was illegitimate. My his dad, I should say, was married and had an affair with someone, and the result was my grandfather. Now, my grandfather could have been a very bitter man. He could have let that hold him back. Could have felt sorry for himself because his own brothers and sisters laughed at him that he would not inherit anything because he was not a legitimate child. But instead, he let that give him strength and motivation to do for himself. I'm not going to drag this out because I really could. There's so much to tell about my grandfather. My grandfather chose to work as a sharecropper and start saving his money. And he started buying land. Eventually, he would have 320 acres of land that he farmed along with his wife that he married about a year after he started sharecropping. And tragically, the first 4 pregnancies were miscarriages, but the next 6 were successful. And with the help of those children, they pretty much were self sufficient. My grandfather grew everything you could think of, from corn, uh, beans, okra, cucumbers, tomatoes. There was onion. There was watermelons, squash, um, cantaloupe, uh, you name it, and he grew it. Greens, oh, my grandmother loved collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, and there are plenty of those, and tomatoes. And I believe she had her own, grew her own seasoning. I'm not going to say for sure because honestly, I don't remember that part. Uh, but there was also apple trees, peach trees, plum trees, and sugar canes that he grew on his farm. When it came to the animals, there was chicken, there was geese, there were ducks, there was a guinea pig, there was hogs, and there was one that was an old sow that we were scared to death of. There was a walnut tree that sat in the middle of the pig pen. Oh my gosh, we tempted fate one time and got in there to go pick up some walnuts that had fallen to the ground. But we never did that again because that old sow took off after us and we barely got out of there. Oh, it's funny to think about it now. But they had cows, um, they had mules. I think there was a donkey, but don't hold me to that. I know they had mules and they had a couple of horses. Um, and they grew cotton because that was the big staple. This was in Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana. And my grandfather, as I said, was pretty self sufficient because he grew everything that he needed, raised everything that he needed. And my grandmother made clothes out of flour sacks. Yes, you young ladies today probably couldn't imagine wearing a dress or a blouse that was made out of a flour sack, but we did. And as children, we made our own toys. My goodness, my sister and I made our own dolls, and they weren't made for us by my grandmother. We took a couple of Coca-Cola bottles and took some cedar grass string. And in case you don't know what it is, cedar grass string is kind of blondish in color, and when you unravel it, it's like hair. Of course, on the coarse side, but it's like hair. And we would stick it in the mouth of the bottle and take something to stuff it to hold it in place so that we could comb the hair. Oh, I even tried making some my bottle clothes, I should say, my bottle doll clothes for them, which was great. Yet one of the things that I enjoyed was when my grandfather, who actually could catch he would bring birds in that he had killed sometime, and he would roast them in the coals of the fireplace. And my God, it had the best taste. That meat, there's nothing like it. And sweet potatoes or white potatoes that are roasted in coals, the corns you roast that under the coals. Oh my gosh, it has such a great taste. The thing that I didn't like when we were living with my grandfather, my grandparents, was the outhouse. You know how we go to the restroom in the house? Well, in those days, you went outside to the outhouse. Smelly old thing. I hated that thing. And at night, we had what they call a chamber pot that you put under your bed. So if you needed to go to the restroom during the night, you pull out that chamber pot and use it. And you were responsible for making sure that chamber pot was empty. Same goes for taking baths. When we had one, anytime my mom wanted us to take a bath, she would have to heat water on a old wooden stove. She would pry that water from a pump that was in the kitchen and fill the pots up. We had the big round metal tub that she would sit by the stove so that we could be warm when we took our baths. And we would all had to take turns using that water so mama wouldn't have to keep emptying the water and then remaking the bath water. Thankfully we were kids and didn't think anything about having to use one another's bath water. I can't remember if I took a bath after someone or if I took a bath before the other kids, but we didn't think about that. Those were some fun days. I used to watch my grandfather or my mom go out and milk the cows. I was never given the opportunity to milk the cows, but then she would go out and milk the cows, and then she would churn the butter, put the milk in this big churner, and then get the butter to come up. Also remember watching her, and I won't say how she killed the chicken in case there's somebody who's can't handle that. But she did, and that fried chicken was so good. In fact, all the food that was cooked in the South was good. Some of it I still have the on my taste buds. You know, there's can't be replaced with stuff in the city. At any rate, my grandfather did all of that, and when he passed away, he left his children 320 acres of land. That land is still in our family today, and every now and then, every once in a blue moon, somebody sends a royalty check. Of course, the most I've gotten on a royalty check was $232, only twice. I wasn't once. It usually is less than that. In fact, it's usually less than 100. Uh, but the land is still there, and we are holding on to it because it was our grandfather's. As we get older and the kids come along, it will probably have to be sold because there's so many of us that somebody's going to let something fall by the crack, and rather than lose it, it would be better to sell it. So that was my grandfather. I was very proud of him. And one of the things that I think he taught my mother was that when you set a goal for something that you want, you go after it, and you don't let anything stop you. And he certainly let nothing stop him from reaching his goal. My mother set 4 goals for herself when we were kids, and she didn't let anything stop her from achieving those goals. So those are 2 people in my personal family that I am extremely proud of for achieving the things that they set out to do, despite uh, people telling them that they wouldn't make it. And I freely admit that there were times, I never said it to my mother, but there were times when I had some doubts because her goals were so lofty for where we were at. And I had doubts in my head that she would make it, but I would not tell her that. I would not ever make my mother feel bad for going after her dreams. And I am so thankful today that I never said anything to her about it because she did achieve her dreams. And mom, I wish I was more like you and your dad, but I'm getting there. And I hope you are too. Well, that's it for us for today. I hope you enjoyed listening to the story about Madam C.J. Walker and Octavius V. Cato, two people in history who made a difference. And my personal stories of my grandfather, I didn't really go into a lot of detail about my mom other than to say that she achieved her goals, but they're personal for me. And I'm happy to share those with you. So thank you for being with us today or being with me today. And I hope you'll be with me again next week. Haven't decided what next week's show is going to be, but I will try to make it interesting for you. And I do want to let you know that I have a journal class that I have started, and I hope that you might take an interest in being a part of it. Um, I will post details in Facebook and you will take a look at it. And I hope you like what you see and want to sign up to be part of that journal class. But anytime you want to reach me, I'm going to make it easy for you now. You can reach me by emailing me at lawana@lawanaspeaks.com. That's lawana@lawanaspeaks.com. And I'll return your whatever the information is that you want to ask me. I'll make sure I respond to your email. But always put in the subject line BAG question or something that lets me know that you are contacting me and it's regarding this show or that you have heard this show and want to find out more about it so that I know that it's not just a junk or spam mail, okay? Because I do get a lot of spam stuff. And sometimes when I see something that I don't recognize, I just delete it without looking into it. So I just ask that you always put BAG in the subject line, and I know that it's related to this show, whether you are talking about the show or not. And therefore, I will open it and respond to whatever it is you have in that email. So, again, I want to just thank you for being here. And as I always say, stay safe and keep the faith. Until next time. Bye. And I love you.